Can you give us some common travel safety tips?
Do not post while you are on your trip. I know sometimes there's a big push to want to do that, and I totally get it, but really just kind of sitting on that.
Social media is such a beautiful tool, right? You get to share your travel memories with maybe family, grandparents, or siblings that can't be on the trip, but it also is a giant red flag and alarm that tells people like, hey, we're not in our house. And it also lets people know where you're at if you're posting.
The Airbnb situation, I think it needs to be better regulated. There is an owner of that Airbnb that does have the key to that Airbnb, and that feels super strange to me. I really like staying at a hotel on the 3rd floor. If you put me on the 1st floor, I will not stay at your hotel. If the person at the front desk says my room number out loud, I ask for a new room. They should never be saying your room number out loud. That is a security issue. You do not need a lot of stuff to be able to feel safe.
Last question for you, our safety expert, Tracy Walder. What is the biggest safety myth that you've heard?
One of the big things that people need to do, and I think they forget to do, is...
Welcome to this week's episode of Scrubs to Stilettos. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Tiffany Moon.
And me, Dr. Nicole Martin.
We are so excited today because we have a very special guest. Her name is Tracy Walder. She was actually one of the other speakers at Lead Her Summit last year, and we are trying to get her again to come speak to us. But today she's going to be talking to us about safety tips for women and those who travel and have children. Tracy is a former CIA officer and FBI special agent who worked in counterintelligence and national security. She has served in the Middle East and Africa, including Afghanistan. She's a national security contributor for News Nation and was recently featured in the Netflix documentary Manhunt for Osama bin Laden. She was a correspondent and commentator on that, and it was so exciting for me to see my friend on TV. She is also the best-selling author of The Unexpected Spy and a passionate advocate for empowering women with knowledge and safety tools. We are so excited to have her on today.
Yeah, basically she's a badass.
Basically, she's a badass and you should do everything she says. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, when I heard her speak at last year's Lead Her Summit, I was in awe at what a badass she is. I mean, there are very few people that managed to make it through CIA training and Quantico and FBI training. And she did it at a very young age, much less, a young, very beautiful female. I think that's, it's hard because it is a very male dominated field. So I think she's been through a lot in terms of her training, her life experience. And I'm so excited to have her on the show because I know that she's got a lot to share.
Yes. Before we jump in with Tracy, let's talk about this week's weekly obsession. What do you have, Nikki?
Okay, so summer's in full swing, and I'm really into, although you can't tell right now, that kind of tousled beach wave look that kind of is voluminous, that looks unfinished. So I've been using this Oribe hair plumping mousse. So before I blow dry my hair, I put some of the mousse and I kind of like massage it into the roots for that kind of uplifted effect. And then I'll do a quick blow dry and then I'll do like the tousled wand look.
Yes. And Oribe, I don't know why, like their smell, I am in love with.
So
I just love everything in their line because of the smell. Speaking of
It's a little
smell,
pricey, I'm not going to lie, because I want to say that $40 for a mousse or something like $35 for a mousse is expensive, right? Like that's a lot.
But I mean, how long does it last you?
But
Probably like
not.
4 to 6 months.
That's what I was going to say. You use such a little bit of amount of product at the roots for that lifted effect that you're not going through it often. So when you look it up and you're a little turned off by the price, it does last a long time. So that's my take on that.
Amazing. Speaking of smells, my current weekly obsession is my own candle from the Aromasthesia Luxe collection. So I came up with this collection because the scents in this collection are a little bit more sophisticated, more elevated. The oils in there are a little bit more expensive. This one is called Opulent Amber, and it has keynotes of saffron and jasmine. And my friend says it reminds her of the Baccarat perfume, but not as strong and not as in your face.
It's a very sexy scent.
Yes, it's the sexy time candle.
I like it. Well, let's get to talking safety and let's welcome our guest of the day, Miss Tracy, the unexpected spy.
Tracy, we are so excited to have you here with us.
Thank you all so much for having me. I said before, I'm like massive fans of both of you, so I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, we've already told our audience a little bit about you, and I thought that it would serve our listeners to talk about practical safety tips for the home, travel, and kids, because I think you see the world through a slightly different lens than perhaps Nicole and I. And even when I talk to you and you give me some of your practical advice and wisdom, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I never really thought of that. So maybe we can dive right into travel. I know you travel a ton. You are a well-known speaker, and you also travel with your family. Nikki and I also do quite a bit of traveling. Can you give us some common travel safety tips?
Well, I think the first thing actually is social media related. Do not post while you are on your trip. I never do. Like, full stop. I've never done anything like that. I know, Tiffy, you're friends with me on my personal page. And so I was just in Europe, but I didn't post about it until we came home. I know sometimes there's a big push to want to do that, and I totally get it, but really just kind of sitting on that. But I also think too, one of the big things that people need to do, and I think they forget to do, is if you go to the State Department's website, you can actually subscribe to obtain alerts for the country that you are in, if there are going to be any things that they see on the horizon. For example, I was just in Barcelona. We received an alert on our phone that there were going to actually be massive protests in Barcelona when we were there. And so that day we were able to plan our trip. I didn't want to expose my child to that. And so we planned our trip around where all of those protests would be. We didn't see anything, but they definitely occurred. And so I think that that's just something really simple. And I also think, just on a very basic level, we think 911 is 911, right? That's just what we are used to. But I also think every country has their own version of 911. In some countries, it is 911. But I think the State Department also, again, has a list of every country and what their 911 is there. And I think also the final thing, sharing your itinerary with someone who is not on the trip is something, in my opinion, that's really important to do. Not just your immediate spouse, because if something happens to you, your spouse is probably going to go to you. I would hope, whatever, would go to you. And so sharing it with someone outside of that circle, I don't know if it's, parent, friend, whatever, in my opinion, is really important.
Yeah, I think it's so tricky nowadays because social media is such a beautiful tool, right? You get to share your travel memories with maybe family, grandparents, or siblings or whatnot that can't be on the trip. But it also is a giant red flag and alarm that tells people, like, hey, we're not in our house. Our house is like an empty place. Come to our home. And it also lets people know where you're at if you're posting live. So if someone wants access to you and they see that you're in Barcelona at this restaurant, they can easily find you or, your loved ones, which is scary because there are a lot of strange people out there.
Yes, that's an understatement.
Yes. But I think, I am guilty of not necessarily, I try to post delayed, but sometimes you get in the moment and you're like, oh, look at this beautiful sunset, or you want to share those memories live and you don't think of the potential repercussions of that.
And this isn't to shame anyone. My recommendations are never to shame anyone. Like, I get it. We're all different. But my husband, he posted a picture while we were there and I was like, take it down now, to his, and he did. But, he's not thinking about that at all. And that's completely fine. It's just, I don't want anyone to feel judged by any of the tips that I'm giving.
Oh, yeah. It's practical ways. And so the State Department, it's free for whoever signs up. You just can go search based on the place that you're traveling to.
Mm-hmm. And you can ask for alerts for the place you're traveling to. So you're not getting like these worldwide. No one wants that. No one has time for that, for worldwide alerts.
Let's talk about accommodations while traveling. Now, you posted on social media that you personally do not like to stay in an Airbnb, which I resonated with. Now, it's controversial because a lot of people out there make rental income off of their Airbnb. So, of course, it opened up a whole can of worms. But go ahead and share with us your personal reasons for not going to a home share type situation.
So I got so much positive and negative for both of those.
Like everything on social media nowadays.
Yes,
It's split.
exactly. Today, people, even though I'm talking about Iran and nukes, don't like my nail color that my 10-year-old picked out. That's apparently very offensive to people. Whatever. Anywho, the Airbnb situation, I get it. A lot of people, that is their primary source of income. And I don't want to take that away from individuals. I understand where I'm coming from when I say something like that. And I do think there are really good ways to still have Airbnbs. I think it needs to be better regulated, in my opinion. The biggest problem with Airbnbs, because it actually happened to us, was we had gone to a place where really there are only Airbnbs to stay in that are managed by property companies. And what had happened was the flight that we were at, it landed at like 10:30. By the time we got there, it was 11:10. I think at the time I had 7, with me. Late at night, my husband's with me. They canceled our reservation as we pulled up, to this Airbnb, and they can do that. And they do that. Hotels do that too. And I understand that, but hotels have a legal obligation to put you either someplace else, refund your money. And there's more to choose from in terms of hotels in different areas. Now, it may not be the hotel you want. I get it. Totally understand that. But there's more to choose from, and the prices are more regulated than being desperate at 11:20 at night and maybe only having a budget of $300 a night. And now you are forced to find an Airbnb that sort of, I guess, has you over a barrel, if you will. And now you are having to pay $1,100 a night. And I think that's one of the biggest issues. Also, Airbnbs are not supposed to have cameras. That is actually regulated. And hotels aren't supposed to either. I want to be clear that all of this can happen in hotels. There's no question. It's just hotels for insurance purposes are regulated a bit differently. And there is an expectation that that's not there. But in terms of Airbnbs, a lot of them, in my opinion, do have do have cameras in them. Also, you have to remember there is an owner of that Airbnb that does have the key to that Airbnb. And that feels super strange to me. That's it's how I feel about Ubers, to be completely honest with you. It feels strange. It feels violating. And I completely understand too that at hotels you have, housekeeping, all of that. But at the same time with hotels, you have security locks and things that you can secure yourself inside that other individuals can't get in. And so I just feel a bit more secure in a hotel. And listen, I have stayed at all different stars of hotels. It's not about I need some 5-star hotel. But it just feels safer to me.
Yeah, there's been a lot of Airbnb horror stories. Just for those people that were wondering, yours that canceled you as you were pulling in, did they say why?
No,
or
they don't have to.
Okay, so I didn't know that Airbnb could just cancel you and have no repercussion. Like, how is that allowed?
They are supposed to refund your money, and believe me, they did. It just wasn't at that moment. It's not an instant refund, right? And I understand that everyone's in all different economic states and stages. And so some people need that refund right away to be able to rebook themselves at a different location. And that is huge. You can obviously dispute it on your credit card too, if that's, how you paid it. But yes, they absolutely can. And this was a place where we actually own a property as well. We do not use it as an Airbnb. We don't rent it out. But I have since now, I'm a member of their chat page or whatever. And this keeps happening all the time in this area. And it's very disconcerting.
Well, it's also the stress, right, of traveling a whole entire day with your family and your children only to find out that you don't have a place to sleep at night. And then, you're on panic mode trying to find something. For me, I understand the financial and the space that's convenient with an Airbnb. If you've got a large family, you can have all the kids in one household. You can have a kitchen, which is huge when you want to prep breakfast early that you don't have necessarily in a hotel. But there is also something that's very that feels safer about a hotel, because there's hundreds of people. If something happens, you've got people next door, you have security, you have a bellman or a doorman, and it just feels like there's almost like a power in numbers situation at a hotel versus an Airbnb where you don't, if something weird happens, someone starts knocking on your door in the middle of the night, like you don't really have anyone to turn to. And that to me is a little bit scary, especially if I'm traveling with kids or I'm traveling without my husband. You know, being by yourself in a random house in the middle of nowhere kind of makes me feel less secure.
I completely agree with you. 100%.
Okay, let's move on to ride sharing, which you have told me before, like you don't even have the Uber app.
Before we switch over, I always see, I wanted to ask you this, I had it in the back of my mind. I always see these posts on social media of like, when I get into a hotel room, I do these things, right? And like people put like a sticker over like the peephole and they hang these things on the doorknobs. Yes. Like, is any of that like, do you have tips that you do when you get to a hotel? Does any of that really make sense? Like, are there anything that our listeners should be doing when they check into a hotel room that adds added safety?
Yes and no. And I did a video on that. For some reason, it got picked up by everyone in the Drew Barrymore show and whatever. And I went on and I talked about it. My biggest thing is about simplifying and not spending a ton of money. And some of these people do this for clickbait. And that enrages me as someone who did this for a living, right? They are preying off the fact that people are fearful. And I don't think that we need to live like that at all. So I want to be clear. Now, there are a few things that we can do. And the one thing everyone seemed to really glom onto is the fact that I really like staying at a hotel on the third floor. Like that's my thing. If you put me on the first floor, I will not stay at your hotel. If there is no other floor, I will not stay at your hotel. Like full stop. I don't stay on the first floor. I find it very dangerous and weird. And so the third floor that I had talked about, that for some reason everyone glommed onto was that it's difficult for people to enter, right? Because they're going to go for, it's all about opportunity for criminals. What they see is opportunity. And so first floor provides opportunity and access. Second floor, a little more. Third floor, that's like the sweet spot because typically it's not as much access, but if something, God forbid, happens in the hotel, there's a fire, there's something, you and you're both doctors, you can actually egress from that window and probably still be alive versus a 17th floor, a 28th floor. So that's the sweet spot. Now, it's not to say I haven't stayed on the 28th floor hotels. I totally have. So that's one thing I do. I always flip that lock over. Always. It's just second nature to me, that second lock. I also, some hotels now I've noticed have from the peephole, you can actually cover it. I don't know if you've seen that. They have that metal,
like a little swipe, like a little swivel.
Yes, exactly. And so obviously do that. If not, the one thing you can do is kind of roll up some Kleenex, and kind of put it into, that peephole. Another thing that I know, people talk about because they're nervous, people can still get in, and I understand that, but that swipe should actually stop people, from being able to get in. The other thing I do is if the person at the front desk says my room number out loud, I ask for a new room. Full stop. They should never be saying your room number out loud. That is a security issue in my opinion.
Interesting.
I've never really thought about the floor when I check into a hotel. I feel like most people want to be higher up, right? Because if you're at a lovely place, you want to enjoy that.
I like that too sometimes. Yes, of course.
Make a valid point. If I have to jump out of a window, I want to survive when I jump. And now I'm going to be staying on the third floor when I travel.
No more ocean view. Can't see over the building.
I'm not gonna lie, folks. Like I have absolutely, like when we go to Hawaii, whatever, I have 100% stayed on the higher floors because I want that ocean view. There is no question that I have done that. And I don't think people should stop doing that. But when I'm going for a business trip or something like that, where I'm by myself and I don't really care, it's just a place to sleep, to be honest, in my opinion, then I'm going to be a bit more selective.
I have to say, I have had so much more anxiety after becoming a mother, right? Like I think about everything. And I remember I was traveling, I was in LA and I got my flight landed late and it was like 11 o'clock and I ordered room service because it was like the only thing that was available. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I have to open the door now to like room service to let them in to bring my food. And I'm in this hotel room by myself. So I ran the shower. And when they knocked on the door, I was like, honey, the food is here. Like pretending that like there was someone in the room because
I love that.
in my mind, I didn't want whoever was bringing the food to know that I was by myself
Yeah.
at 11 o'clock at night. So I
I
tried to
love
smart.
that idea.
it's something that now I think about, and I think about these escape routes. And when I go into a place, I'm trying to, what's the quickest way out if something was to happen? It's so sad that this is the times that we live in, but it's the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Tiff, now to your Uber rideshare, because I know you had an interesting experience when you were in Miami.
Before I start my Uber story, Tracy, tell us why you basically don't have rideshare apps on your phone.
I find them to be so dangerous. You are literally getting into a vehicle with someone that you do not know. And they can take you anywhere. It is only by sheer luck that and people get so offended because, listen, I know people who are Uber drivers who I absolutely trust. This isn't a personal affront to anyone. No one who doesn't know me should get into a vehicle with me. You don't know me. It's not a personal affront, to Uber drivers as a whole. This is just a simple security thing. I mean, I'm old, so I understand I'm old. But back in my day, it was that, you don't pick up hitchhikers, right? Because you don't know them and they could get into your vehicle and hurt you. This is the same thing, in my opinion, but reverse. Now, on the flip side of that, there's a cost issue because private vehicles are very expensive. Far more so than an Uber. And I think there's a legitimate discussion around the fact that those prices need to probably come down, or we need to do more in terms of guaranteeing safety of people in rideshare apps.
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember this, but I was in Miami to give Grand Rounds several months ago and had taped a podcast to promote my book, and then was going to stop at my hotel to change and put my suitcase away. But I didn't realize that Miami traffic was that bad. And so when I looked at the time, I was like, oh, I'm just going to need to go straight to dinner. So I changed the destination of my Uber ride, and which you're allowed to do. Everyone's like, this is your fault because you changed the destination. I'm like, you're allowed to do that. Yeah. And verbally communicated with the driver that I was going to change my destination. And he was like, it's cool, whatever. And then we stop at this stoplight and this kid starts trying to get into my Uber, and I'm so confused. I'm like, it's my Uber. And he's like, no, it's my Uber. And I was like, well, I'm in it already, so clearly it's mine. And he's like, you must have ordered an Uber share then. And I was like, sir, no offense, but never in my life have I ever ordered an Uber share or Uber pool or Uber whatever. In fact, I almost always order an Uber Black, but because the University of Miami was paying for this trip, I actually was trying to not seem too bougie princess whatever, and ordered Uber Comfort, which I think is a good mix between Uber Black and Uber X. Anyway, I did not order Uber Pool or Share, whatever that is. Anyway, I tell this kid, I'm not comfortable with you sitting next to me. I don't know you. I, ordered a car that's a private, for me, and I'm going to be late. I don't have time to have this conversation with you. Order another Uber.
The driver of the Uber, he unlocked the door for the gentleman.
Yes.
That was the issue. You've got
No. The window was down, and the kid reached in and unlocked the car himself, and then proceeded to sit next to me the whole time. That I'm like, no,
the driver said nothing. The driver
Correct.
wasn't sure you need to get out of the car. He just sat
No.
there and let you argue with this gentleman that you had no idea.
Yes. And I was like, hello, sir, it's your car. It's your prerogative to tell this other kid, no, this is my vehicle. I'm currently finishing another ride. And it was just it was so weird. And then when I posted it, everybody was mad at me and oh, she's such an entitled bitch. And why don't you order another Uber? And I'm like, because I'm already in the one that I'm paying. It's
suitcases
so
in the
weird.
trunk. What are you supposed to do? Jump out and leave your stuff in the car? That's in the
Yeah,
trunk?
and my suitcase is literally in the back seat. You know what I mean? And they're like, you order another. And it just, it was so crazy to me how many people like came after me when I didn't do anything wrong, you know? And then of course I get this like canned email from Uber that's like, this was not the ride app experience we wanted you to have. Please accept $20 toward your next Uber. And I'm like, get out of here. Get out of here. Yeah. And so there was also a lot of people who said that they had dangerous experiences where their drivers tried to touch them, tried to do other things. Like you can read it in the comments. But yeah, it wasn't really until that happened, to be honest, that I thought second about doing it. Sometimes I have a private car service that I book for airports and stuff, but like I'll change my flight and forget to tell them, and it's just a mess. And I find the convenience and availability of rideshare apps to be really like the most positive attribute. And
For
up
sure.
until then, largely, I had very positive experiences with Uber. I mean, you know, it's convenient. It comes within 5 minutes, like yada, 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 right? So it didn't really occur to me. The other thing that was wild is my friend, had her home broken into, and she thinks it's her private driver person because he knows that you're going to be out of town because he's picking you up from your house and then taking you and your family to the airport. And then he knows you're going to be back on this date because he knows, again, he's supposed to pick you up next Saturday at 8 p.m. or whatever. And I guess he leaked that intentionally or unintentionally to someone. And then while they were out of town, someone broke into her home and stole like all her jewelry, watches, you know, stuff like that. And so then I was thinking like, oh, well, maybe I'm smart for using Uber. Like I don't have a private driver or one that I use regularly enough that could even tell when I'm going to be out of town. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I came on there. I remember when you had posted about it, I defended you like completely. I was like, hey, I'm a former FBI agent. Like I watched that video, and in my opinion, some of the blame lies with the driver. We have to accept responsibility, especially if we are going to be an Uber driver, if we are going to be an Airbnb host, for people's safety. And we have to stand up for that. And I think people were like, well, he's going to get fired because of this. That seems to me like a him problem. And not a you problem. I hate to be so blunt, but like the reality is that was an unsafe situation. Like full stop.
We have no idea who this gentleman was that jumped in the car with you. He should have locked the door or put the windows up to not give him access to you.
Yeah, it was the strangest thing, honestly. Like I just couldn't, and people were like, why were you recording this? And I'm like, because I have no other safety mechanism. I had just arrived in Miami that day, flew in. So I didn't have my mace that I usually carry when I'm in Dallas, you know, on my keychain. I certainly am not going to fight off anyone, right? I'm like 5'3" and 110 pounds, right? So I'm thinking if I record, then I at least have a face, you know, and a voice. Like if something happens to me, like it was all I could think of to do to get some sort of thing on the record, because if I hadn't have recorded, it would have just been like my word against theirs that like this weird kid jumped in an Uber with me the whole time, why I'm like, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky. I've always had positive experiences with Uber. I have more recently. I feel like when Uber first started, I used Uber a lot. And now as I'm hearing more and more kind of horror stories or bad things happening, I'm reluctant to use Uber, or if I'm going to use an Uber, I want to make sure that I'm with somebody else, like a girlfriend or something, share a ride, because I feel like, again, there's power in numbers. There are a few things that I do that I find to be a little bit helpful that maybe our listeners will find to be helpful too. And then Tracy, I don't know if you have anything you want to add, but I always, like when I get to the car, I always confirm that the license plate that is on the app is the same one that's on the car. And then I always ask the driver, who are you picking up, to make sure that like it's kind of closed looped, because I don't want to get in the car for Sarah and it's not my drive and then he takes me somewhere that I don't want to. And then I always share my ride with like Anthony if he's not with me, or my mom or a best friend or something. I always like send him a text and say, hey, I'm in an Uber. I'm sharing my location with you. And then I always drop the windows a little bit, because I just, in case something happens, I want to be able like to have an exit in case they lock the doors or something. And I never, ever, ever drink any of the water or eat any of the things that they're offering.
Oh, okay.
I could be parched. I could be dying of thirst. And I am not drinking a water bottle in your car. You're not going to roofie me. I'm
Oh
sorry.
my God.
No,
That's so, I didn't even think of that. I mean, isn't the water like sealed?
You know what? A needle, Tiffany, a syringe.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Thank you. I watch too many movies.
Yeah, you've been watching too many murder mystery.
Probably. But those are my tips. Confirm,
That's good.
drive,
Okay.
lower the window, share your ride, and don't eat or drink anything.
Yeah, I always make the guy tell me his name, not be like, "Are you Fred?" You know what I mean? Because of course he's going to be Fred if you say it, you know? So instead of saying like, "Oh, who are you picking up?" or whatever, I'll be like, "Hi, what's your name?" and make sure that it matches. And then one time there was a guy and his license plate like didn't match what the app said. And I was like, "I'm not getting in your car because it doesn't match what it says on the app." And he's like, No, it's okay." And I was like, No, it's not okay. Like, you can go, you can cancel the ride. I can cancel the ride. I'll deal with the cancellation charge later. It's like $5 or $10 or something. But I was like, it's not okay that it doesn't match. Like, get out of here. Yeah. It's really sad, honestly, that we have to be like this proactive about it. But it really stems from the fact that we hear a lot of horror stories, right?
Yeah. And I think like people are going to continue to do it because it's convenient. And sometimes you don't have a choice. If you're going to go out at night, you know, you're going to be drinking. You don't want to drink and drive. An Uber seems like a reasonable option. If you're traveling and you don't want to leave your car in long-term parking at the airport, an Uber seems reasonable. So I don't think that us having this conversation is meant to scare people to never take an Uber again. I think that's unrealistic. But I do think that this is intended to educate and to offer smarter ways in which you can take the Uber. And Tracy, I don't know if you have any other tips, advice. Are taxis safer?
Well, y'all are going to think I'm insane, so I'll just put it out there. What one of the things that I do if I have the time. So it depends on like when the person is coming, right? From when you can do this. So typically if I'm working for my speakers bureau or whatever, I have a car, right? And so I can Google the person beforehand. I have some time. Now if you have time, and you subscribe to the service, and I understand it is a subscription fee, but you can actually run that person's name through Then Verified before they pick you up. And so you know if they have outstanding warrants. It takes, once you get like put it into the database, it literally takes 3 minutes. It's just sometimes the ride is like right there. And so you just don't have that kind of time. But if you have that kind of time and have, access to that, in my opinion, that's something that you can do. I don't care if people have speeding tickets and those guys. I definitely don't care about that. But I do want to know if they have any violent tendencies, violent histories. And I know Uber screens people and background checks, but they're not screening for everything. And I think in my opinion, it's important to do that. I'm sure that sounds like I'm an insane person. I'm really not.
I'm here wondering, what's the subscription? How much does it cost a month? And what information do I need to put about the driver?
It's first name and last name. So you're going to get that right on their
Uber profile or whatnot.
You can also put in their license plate as well. So you can search by license plate, you can search by phone number, you can search by first and last name. The other thing I do, because I have had to take Ubers, it's not that I've like never taken them, which I know is going to seem rude, probably affects my Uber score, I'm sure, is I am always on the phone when I'm in the Uber, because I want the driver to know that someone's going to miss me if something happens to me. I'm obviously polite and courteous, say hello, greet the driver, as we all should. But I am on the phone. So a lot of times I'm calling my mom because my husband's seeing patients and like doesn't pick up, but like, it's fine. So I call someone and I'm on the phone most of the duration of the drive. So that way, if something does happen, someone has an immediate, reaction. Of course, I'm sharing my ride though, too. So I guess those are the two other things that I do.
I have often pretended to be on the phone because again, my husband's like in the middle of a business meeting and you know, whatever. So I'll be like, yeah, babe, I just got in the Uber. Like, yeah, here, let me give you the license plate. Okay. Yeah. I'll call you as soon as I get to the hotel or something like that. You know what I mean? And like pretend. But yeah, it's crazy. You mentioned briefly, Tracy, looking people up online. Now we're not, sponsored by or promoting any specific platform, but, can you share with us what exactly you do, especially as it relates to people who will be in contact with your kid?
Oh, Yes, like nannies or
Nannies, babysitters, coaches, preschool teachers, summer school counselors. My kids are in summer school right now, and it's a different camp every week. Like, I have to piece together, last week it was tennis camp, this week it's swimming camp, next week it's fashion camp. Like, and I don't even know the names of the people who my children will be interacting with. You know what I mean?
So you can email, because I know exactly what you're talking about, Tiffany. Obviously, we live in the same community. We go to those kinds of camps, but you actually can say, like, what is the name of the teacher, like, teaching this class? If someone has a problem giving that to you, that's a red flag, in my opinion. But I have to be honest with you. I Google every single. So at the CIA, what we call this is something called the information upper hand. And I'm going to make a video about it on my Instagram page. But when we recruit human assets, we always want to know more about them than they know about us. So that way we have that information upper hand, and then we can, which sounds terrible, but we can manipulate that to get what we want, which is not nice. I understand that. However, I do apply that to anyone that either I come in contact with or that my daughter comes in contact with, because there is nothing wrong about having information, like zero. And you're not obtaining it in an illegal way. I would never support that, but I would expect someone to Google me. I have zero issues with that. And so I do, again, I'm not sponsored by anyone. My platform's not monetized. I just happen to have something called, there is Truthbinder. I use Been Verified. I just like the format because, again, it's a little old school. I like that. And again, you can put anything, phone number, all of that. And that's actually how I caught recently a student who was sending death threats, to me, was through, that's how I was able to serve them and have the police, come get them, was through that. So it's just a very helpful tool.
Yeah, I mean, look, we hear so many horror stories that if anyone thinks that the things that we do are quote unquote crazy, it is because we are trying to protect our children.
We're living in crazy times.
We are living in crazy times. Maybe I watch too much TikTok or something, but I heard about a mom that was at Target and this guy was like following her and her toddler around. And then when she got out to her car, there was like an unmarked white van with one of those sliding doors. And I was like, like, it's just, there's too much bad stuff out there. And so when it comes to myself, my family, my children, you can call me crazy all day, but if you're going to come in contact with my children or come inside my home, right? Like, I have a nanny, a housekeeper, a dog sitter, like, a deep cleaning person that comes once every 6 months. Like, these are people that I'm giving access to the inside of my home, and I'm going to check you out, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with having information that is obtained legally. And if I'm going into someone else's home because, I'm working for them, I hope you do look me up. I hope that you don't just open your door to everyone who wants to come do business with you.
And I think, like Tracy said, any reasonable person that's going to be dealing with your children should understand that as a parent, you have concerns. And if they're not okay with you verifying their background, that's a little bit alarming. And that should probably make some sirens go off as to why does this person not want to provide this information?
Yes, exactly.
Look at it as like why don't you trust me? I don't trust anyone.
It's not personal.
It's not personal. Trust is earned, and you, sir, are a stranger, right? Like, you haven't earned my trust yet. When you earn it, I won't look you up anymore.
And listen, when I look people up, yes, sometimes bankruptcies come up. Sometimes financial things come up. Listen, we all have a past. I don't judge about those kinds of things. Just because maybe you've had a bankruptcy, that doesn't mean you can't come in contact with my child. That's not what I'm looking for, right? We are looking for certain things when we're looking people up, but we don't always catch it. In my opinion, and I'm not going to talk about it on the podcast, but Tiffany knows what I've been through, the ultimate, unfortunately, with my daughter. And so, but for me, social media, if they are willing to friend you on social media, do it, because that is what told me the most about what happened to my daughter was social media. That is ultimately, I say try to friend their daycare teacher, try to friend, try. Now, some schools have policies in place. I mean, I used to be a teacher and there was a policy where we couldn't accept. Some schools don't, and you might get lucky. And so do it. Because in my opinion, social media and posting habits tell you so much. And I learned kind of the hard way about that, but yeah.
So speaking of children and social media, I have a 6 going on 7-year-old boy who now is at the age where, you know, his friends are starting to play these like Fortnite and Roblox and like these video games, but they're just not video games that you play by yourself at home. They're meant to have internet connection and meant to invite strangers or friends or whatnot to play. And we have all of those functions turned off, but it's still very scary to me because he's a smart kid. He knows how to read. He can probably turn them on when we're not looking some way. I don't think it's foolproof. What are your thoughts on these games? Because you read these horror stories about how, you know, an adult befriends a kid through Roblox or Fortnite and the next thing shows up at his house.
You're totally right. And I guess I'm a mean mom.
Oh, no, trust me, I'm a mean mom too. I'm trying to ban all of that.
I don't allow her to do any of that. And so, listen, I am 100% sure. But here's the thing. I also don't want her living in ignorance because my daughter is a very social being and has a lot of friends and she goes over to their houses and that's great. She should. And so I do want to create an environment where she can talk to me about, you know, what's going on there. I know what Roblox is. And so she's not, I think sometimes we're just like, we don't want to tell them about it. So that way, and I think that's not the best thing to do sometimes. But I also think a little bit of exposure isn't necessarily bad. So like my daughter, she does have, and part of it is unfortunately because I can't find her sometimes because she plays tennis at a different location and they lose her. And so she has GPS on her Apple Watch, but she only has the ability to call whomever I programmed into her watch. She doesn't have the internet on here. And the same thing with the iPad. We've blocked all of those apps. And it's really great that you turned off his ability to chat. But I mean, you're so right, Nicole. I feel like kids are smarter than us and they know how to like.
They know more technology than we do at this point.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. It's crazy because I turned off all that stuff on my kid's phone or on their iPad. And then like a month ago, Chloe was like, oh yeah, this guy keeps texting me. And I was like, what? And she's like, oh yeah. And then I pulled up her messages on her iPad, which I thought that I had fixed it to where incoming messages couldn't come in, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't program it correctly. And it was like some unusual number. And it was like, hey, what are you doing? What do you look like? And she's responding though, like talking. And I was like, don't talk back to strangers that text you. And she's like, why not? And I was like, oh my God. Like, I just like, yeah, I think we need to have more like, we need to actually tell the kids why. And I sat my girls down and I was like, there are bad people out there. There are people who want to hurt you. I also told them like, they're never really out in public alone. I would say, you know, they're at a school event or, you know, at an activity or something, but I have said like no adult man ever needs help from a little girl. Like, you know, because they'll be like, oh, little girl, I'm lost. Can you help me? I'm like, oh, please get out of here. You know what I mean? And so I've told my girls like no adult needs help from a child. Like it is not your responsibility because they're like, that guy needed help. And I'm like, no, he didn't. You know, like my mom prickly sense went up, but I've had to sit my girls down who are 10, you know, same as your daughter, and basically tell them earlier than I wanted to, like, there are bad people out there. There are people who are trying to take advantage of you, who want to hurt you, who maybe want to take you away from mommy and daddy. And they were like, oh, but I think, you know, I think it's necessary.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Tracy? You know, because you don't want to scare your kids, right? At least Grayson is like 6 years old is still to me very young, but it's also old enough to have a reasonable conversation with. And it's, do you have these conversations that maybe instill fear, but also show them that the world isn't perfect? Like, do you rain on their perfect little world so soon, you know?
Yes.
I don't know.
You're so right because like they're only little for such a little period of time, right? And so I totally get it. And Tiffany, I'm so sorry that happened. Like that's crazy. But one of the things I do want to say, Tiffany, is you've obviously created an environment where Chloe feels like she can tell you that something like that happened. And I think that's really important too, because we don't want them hiding things, from us, in my opinion. But I do think that I really actually have had conversations, with my daughter. Unfortunately, some of it is because of something that happened when she was 3. We had to have those conversations, with her, but I think you can have them in very age appropriate ways. Like, I mean, for example, perfect thing. Something happened today where she had gone to a friend's house who lives like the next block over. They were making dog walker sign. They want to be dog walkers. I'm like, okay, good luck with that. And she's like, we're going to put our phone numbers on it. And I was like, you're not going to put your phone number on it. Now you can put an adult's phone number on it. So somebody's mom or dad's phone. Why can't we put our phone number on it? And so I said to her, hey, you know what? You do not want to advertise what your phone number is. That is something that is so personal and special to you. You only want to give it to people that you have talked to mommy and daddy about and that mommy and daddy are aware of. I said, you don't want to give that out to people, just like, and I don't know if you guys are okay talking about this on this podcast, but just like we've talked about, pictures of your body. We talk about that, with her in age appropriate ways. Like, I don't really know that she knows or understands what pornography, those kinds of things are, but we do talk about it in age appropriate ways. And I think keeping that two-way street open is like super important.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will wrap it up because we want to be respectful of your time. We just have a few rapid fire questions at the end. Okay. What is one non-negotiable safety habit of yours?
Oh my God. Oh, I never open the garage door before I get into my car and start it.
Okay. And then the corollary, when you come into the garage, you make sure that it's closed and then you get out, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Amazing.
I have one.
Oh, okay. Go.
One personal safety item that you would recommend the most? Like, is it mace? Is it an alarm? Is it a GPS AirTag?
There's probably 2. I use something called She's Birdie. I don't know if you guys have heard of that before, but it is, you pull it and there's an alarm that goes off that is ear piercing as well as a light that is blinding. And then it connects to your phone and gives emergency services your GPS location. Yeah. When I was on the Drew show, they gave it out because it was like what I like the most. The problem is I like mace and I really like a company called Bling Sting because it's like blinged out Swarovski crystal, which is like right up my alley, like cute mace. I also have a taser, but I can't travel with my taser or with my mace.
Right.
It's just not travel efficient. And so the Birdie, in my opinion, is travel efficient. Also, I work on a college campus. I can't have those things on a college campus, but I can have the Birdie on college campus. So I would 100% recommend that.
Okay. And it's called Birdie, like
Birdie.
And we'll make sure to link it in the show notes for our listeners. That's amazing. I'm going to add to cart as soon as we get off this.
But have you actually ever deployed the Birdie?
No, only when I was on the show and they wanted to like hear and sound what it sounded like. But no, I've never been in a situation where I've had to use it. And quite frankly, I would give one, not at the age of 10, because she's definitely going to use it as a toy, but I would 100% give it to her when she goes into high school for sure. There's no, any kid can have it.
Is this a one and done thing? Like you deploy it and it's over and you need to buy a new one? No, you can close it up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Immediately going to get a Birdie after this. Okay, last question for you, our safety expert, Tracy Walder. What is the biggest safety myth that you've heard?
I think the biggest thing is what we were talking about before, that you need all of this stuff to make yourself feel safe. And I really feel like that is a huge myth that's sort of propagated by, individuals for clicks and those kinds of things. But you do not need a lot of stuff to be able to feel safe.
Yes, just some situational awareness and proactive thinking, right? And smart girlfriends like us.
Yes, 100%.
Well, that totally wraps us up today.
Great episode.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. We hope that the listeners picked up at least 1 or 2 pearls and that we all live in a safer manner.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Have a great day, Tracy.
Bye.
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Scrubs to Stilettos. If you haven't already done it, hit like or subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you have a girlfriend or someone you know that needs a safety refresh, be sure to share their episode. And if you want to follow Tracy for more safety tips, you can find her on Instagram at The Unexpected Spy.